Welcome to Internally Guided Life, a podcast to help you unlock a life of balance, fulfillment, and joy. I'm Kayla Sweet, and together we're going to have fun and create change from the inside out. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome back, my friends. I am so excited for today's conversation. We often have really big goals, dreams, aspirations, things we want to do with our lives, and we don't always know where to start or have good, consistent habits to get us where we want to go. And that is what we're going to dig into today. We're going to be really talking about the little things, the small steps, the practical, applicable pieces that we can take and practice to have a really big impact and create transformation in our lives and move towards the things that matter to us. So I am incredibly excited for this conversation. It's going to be a great blend of the practical with the transformational. And we have an amazing guest joining us today to walk us through this, and that is Dr. Christiane Schroeter. And she is an entrepreneur, a business coach, and a professor who has dedicated her career to helping people really make bold moves in their lives without burning out, without stressing out, without losing themselves in the process. And she created a system to do this, which is called the Petite Practice system. And this framework is to help people get the momentum they need through the small, consistent, manageable actions, which is what we're going to dig into today. She's also the host of her own podcast, the Happy Healthy Hustle podcast, and the author of Discover Your Superpower, a book that helps people unlock their strengths. So she's doing all kinds of amazing things in the world, and we cannot wait to see what wisdom she will infuse in today's episode. Welcome, Christiane.
Thanks so much for having me here. I am really excited to, as you mentioned it, infuse my wisdom. This is going to be a super fun conversation. So thanks for having me.
Yes, it's going to be amazing. I've been looking forward to it since we talked. It's probably been over a month ago now when we connected last. So I'm ready for it. I do want to give you a chance to share a little bit from, your own perspective about who you are, what you do in the world, what you're about. Yeah, tell us from your own words.
And I love the introduction. It was absolutely amazing. And you might hear from my accent, I'm actually born in Germany, moved to the United States to pursue graduate school. So I earned a PhD from Purdue University. And if you're now thinking, wow, so she's German and wrote a dissertation in another language, right? And you also heard that I wrote books. And that's maybe also introducing my Petite Practice framework. I applied it all throughout my life. When I wrote my dissertation, when I wrote my books, actually I have 3 books on Amazon now. The way that I lead my life, I always take small steps, and over time they will really accumulate to big results. And from Purdue University in the Midwest, which reminded me a lot of Germany, I have to be honest with you. I first moved to the South. I lived in Arkansas and worked there. And now I'm in California. I have 2 daughters, leading my life here, teaching at the university, and of course, coaching a lot of amazing entrepreneurs and helping them reach their goals and letting them step a little bit into their superpower, which really inspired also the title of my new book, Discover Your Superpower. Because I believe that if we become more comfortable with who we are and authentically really speak what our strengths are, it's magic. It's going to happen. And I hope that today some of you will discover some of your superpowers and how you can get there with those petite practices.
Yes, I love your personal story because I can only imagine the challenge of coming here to pursue your education and the academic rigor required, and to be able to navigate that in a way that didn't create burnout, and then to be able to create a system from that other people can apply to reach their goals. It's just such a powerful story.
Thank you. Yeah. And I think that also inspires each of us, because if you think about that, I'm living in California now, to think a little bit about like the superpower is a little bit like feeling at home with who you are, with where you are and with what you do. So we sometimes feel like we are maybe unhappy with our life, and it sometimes just takes a little switch. It could be even like a geographic move, with which of course is a big switch. But for me, I've started feeling at home when I moved to the United States, and more feeling like I can actually speak things, and that I'm feeling more in tune with who I'm really am with my own self. And that is really like an amazing transformation, as you mentioned. And it doesn't always require these drastic steps. But today I'm going to share some of my tips with you of how you can feel that same feeling at home, in tune with yourself feeling.
Yeah. I love that it's very practical in that we can take these little steps, create these habits, these systems for consistency, but it's also so much about authenticity and like really being who we are and doing these steps in an alignment with what matters to us and what is authentic to us. So it really creates like a well-rounded approach, which I love.
Yeah, and as I read a lot as a professor, of course, but also just to also help my clients become their best selves. I read a lot of business literature or self-help books, and Brené Brown really said it beautifully. She said you can either way stand outside of your story and look in, or you can stand inside of your story and own it. And I think the owning part is really where the magic happens, where you're sharing your authentic self with the world and really letting them know of who you are and how you can help them. Because at the end of the day, as an entrepreneur, you're helping others. And by helping others, you're helping yourself. So you always need to think in service of what? What am I really doing? Like, how is it helping others? And then really, you're not just selling something, but you're actually helping others with your product, with your service, and elevate them to become their best selves.
Yeah. Yeah. And you use this with entrepreneurs in your business, you use it with the students in your work as a professor. And honestly, I think this is stuff that no matter what realm of work you're in, like you can apply it to reach your goals. So even if your goals are like a promotion in your current organization or switching industries, like whatever it is that matters to you, you can apply this framework, which is also really cool.
Yeah. So yeah,
So
I can't wait to share.
yeah, so I want to ask a little more about the Petite Practice system. So you mentioned this is what you did personally to like get you through your studies and to help you reach each of these milestones, these goals in your careers. So how did you develop the system and like formalize it in a way that it would be digestible for other people?
I love it. Yeah, I was teasing it all along. I was tempted, Kayla, to give it away at an earlier stage, and then I thought, no, 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 I need the audience to hang on and actually listen. So when you are in a stage in your life where you know that you want to write a book, or you want to launch a course, or maybe you want to start a business, anything like that, it's the first thought is, oh my gosh, this is like super intimidating and big, right? So the petite practice break down the vastness of this goal into small steps. So petite means French, it's small, and practice means that you're taking steps to get to that big goal. So think about like a pyramid and the goal all the way in the top, like that's your peak goal right there. And you could, of course, you take these really big jumps, like you say, okay, in a month, I'm going to do this. And then the next month I do this. Or you say, all right, how about I break down 1 month into 30 days, and I'm taking small actions every day. I'm going to do this action, which gets me closer to my goal. So let me apply this to my personal life. When I was at Purdue University, it definitely was a program. You mentioned it so beautifully. Rigor, the academic rigor was right there. And they basically said, all right, so we want you to graduate in 4 to 5 years. And if you don't, right, and for me, of course, I was German. There was, issues with my visa and with my funding and all this. And so I thought, well, I guess I really have to get this done, right? This dissertation has to be written. So what I did was I basically looked at dissertations in the library and figured out they're about 300 pages long. And of course, it depends on the topic, but that's about, an average length of a dissertation. So I would put the 300 in my little pyramid all the way in the top. So I could say, well, each month I'm going to write 100 pages. And that sounds absolutely atrocious right now. You're like, I have each month 100 pages. Or I could say, well, let me break down that month, 100 pages. What does it really mean per day? And all of a sudden, your goal becomes much more tangible. Instead of just saying you have to write 100 pages by the next month, and then you maybe sit down 2 days before your personal deadline and you crank out the pages, and it's just like wishy-washy quality. You actually every day write 2 to 3 pages, right? And if you multiply the 3 pages by 30, all of a sudden you realize, oh my gosh, this gets me really close to 100 pages. So that's essentially what I did. I took the dissertation length, broke it down into the time frame that I gave myself to get this done. And of course, in a dissertation, you also have to defend it. So you have to do a prospectus seminar, then you have to defend it, then you have to make all the changes that your committee recommended. So it's not just like in 3 months and I'm graduating. There's also time frames in between of review and edits, etc. So that's essentially a petite practice. You take that big goal, put it on top of your pyramid, and then you figure out what are small steps that can lead to the goal. And as I just mentioned with my dissertation, life is not perfect. So the beauty of a petite practice is there might be a day when your 2 pages are maybe not amazing quality. And that's all right because it's only 2 pages. So on the next day, you just write 2 other pages, but you at least you didn't feel like you have to crank out the 100 pages or something like this. It's small steps. And the beautiful thing is every day you see the number of pages on your document increasing, and that feels tremendously good as a win. And the small wins are really what's going to keep you propelling forward because it's going to put you into a positive mindset and it's going to make you feel that every day you're contributing another little step to getting closer to your goal.
Yeah, it makes so much sense because I think about how, like you said, with your example of 100 pages a month, that feels like, oh my gosh, 100 pages, it's a lot. Or you're thinking about the whole dissertation, 300 pages. It's so easy to go into overwhelm, overload, like procrastination, anxiety, like all the things that come up when we think of those big things we want. But then you break it down, okay, 3 pages a day. If I can just sit down and do 3 pages, I'm that much closer. And that creates that habit, that routine, that discipline. And it also will keep you from, procrastinating because of overwhelm. I think of like that paralysis when you freeze because you're so overwhelmed by what you need to do that you do nothing. So it prevents you from doing that and getting in your own way.
Yeah, and quite honestly, I love that you just said that writing the 3 pages per day. And then you have a goal, but what you can do next is you can create like a little space in your house. So you have your place, and maybe even you have your time in the day when you go to that place. So really, I love how beautifully you said this. You're creating a habit, and over time, this habit will become a routine. But you first have to get started, right? So I mean, like you have to look around in your house and say, all right, 3 pages. Where am I going to write this? Do I have a dedicated workspace? Because if it's no, then I mean, how are you going to create this? So whether you're going to write this at your kitchen table or you're going to sit outside somewhere in your garden, you need to make sure that those 3 pages are going to happen. So like the environment really create this. And I'm so emphasizing this. It needs to be an oasis of joy. You cannot look at like a desk that's like drowning in bills and expect that these 3 pages are going to be gorgeous and joy. It's not.
Mm.
So I'm calling it oasis of joy because at the end of the day, you are working. So you want to make this as pleasant as possible. And I think that we frequently underestimate how small things, again, speaking about the petite, how small things impact the outcome of our work, right? So, for instance, you could come into an office that's like fully cluttered and has like, books and junk everywhere. Or you maybe in that office, again, you don't need to clean it up all at once, overwhelming, but maybe you have like a corner of a desk and you could put a candle there. You could put some jazz music, like some like, Paris vibe jazz music, no words in the background. and you can put some lighting on, maybe even like that candle is scented. So that all your senses are kind of illuminating the joy you're going to create. And with that, outcomes are going to be actually tremendously elevated. So there's a lot of science that goes into this when you think about work being uncomfortable or work as something you start to look forward to because you're like, oh, today I get to light my candle and I'm going to my little corner at my desk and I'm writing these 3 pages. I'm actually sharing something amazing with the world. So that's how you need to start looking at this. You
Mm.
need to basically flip the switch and thinking about your 3 pages as something that will allow you to be in that space. I get to write 3 pages, not I have to write 3 pages, but I get to write 3 pages because I'm going to share my wisdom with the world today.
I love that perspective because now we're bringing in environment and mindset, like the way you're thinking about it. Because you're right, if you're going into it like, oh my gosh, I have to do this thing that I hate doing, you're probably not going to produce very good quality, whether it's your 3 pages or whatever other goal you're working towards, whatever thing you need to do every day to move towards it. If you're trying to build a social media presence, maybe it's showing up for your online, for your blog or your podcast or your posts or your communities, whatever it might be. If you're at work, you're working towards a big yearly goal. Like what do those steps look like in the corporate space? It doesn't matter the space, but the framework of mind that you're coming to it with and the environment. I love that you brought that up because I changed my office, my home office. Oh my goodness, it's probably been close to a year ago now. And it wasn't bad before, but I just hadn't taken the time to really put those finishing touches on to really make it just something I was proud to be in, something really cozy. And once I did that, I replaced a couple pieces of furniture, I put some stuff up on the wall, just made it feel more like somewhere I really wanted to spend time. I have been able to do so much more because I want to be in there. And what I do in there, I work on things that matter to me. And so that I'm producing more. And I didn't even really think about that. I just wanted my office to be cute. But that's such a great point that when we have an environment that brings us joy, we're able to show up for that. So I love that's part of it.
Yeah, so important. And I frequently see that in my clients because I also help them with their wellness in their bedrooms, even, right? So they say, oh, I don't get enough sleep. And then I start asking these questions. Well, do you feel when you walk into your bedroom, it's this oasis of joy? Or do you have your cell phone plugged next to your bed? Because I would strongly recommend taking your electronics out of the bedroom and putting them in the office. So what I'm doing right now, Kayla, is I'm kind of like creating a space for each element in your house. And I think that is really frequently the flip, really, the activation energy coming from, all right, business, work, phone, work, bedroom, sleep. And so think about every item in your house has a function, and your house is also lined out by these functions. So when you come home and let's say you are working from home, make your office your workspace. And when you close the door to your office, your work is done, right? So then don't start looking again when you're in the kitchen. The kitchen is for preparing food and for socializing. So think a little bit about that, making that function as like a boundary creation, because when you work from home and especially when you run your own business, we frequently everything just blends into each other. We don't have these boundaries, but in fact the boundaries will allow you to use the petite practice and actually become so much more effective, efficient, and also, as you mentioned, making it really more like a oasis of joy because you are more dedicating spaces in your home and making them you.
Yeah, yeah, something that you look forward to that you feel at home in, but also the the environment and the routine, like the signals it sends to your brain. I think that's what you're getting to, and you're like the context of each room, like making the environment fit the context of what you want to happen in there. And that makes perfect sense to me because then our brains, we're so pattern and habit based. Then you go into that environment, you're like, oh, that flip switches, it's time for this now. Yeah. So
Completely. Yeah.
So a lot of the people that I work with are just incredibly high performing, high achieving, often perfectionist leaning people. And they have this drive, this desire for excellence, but when it moves into the perfectionism, that can lead to some challenges where it either creates that overwhelm or that I don't want to do it because I can't do it perfectly feeling. How do you see the petite practice process kind of supporting people and like leaning away from that and doing stuff in a more healthy way?
Love it. There's actually two pieces of science and research that I want to share here with you. So, one of them, of course, and I mentioned that earlier, is the positive reinforcement of a daily win. And I would
Mm.
encourage you, especially if you're a perfectionist, at the end of the day, write down 3 wins into a journal and ideally maybe next to your bed. So it's it's something that you finish your day off. You write your wins, and then you're going into this positive mindset as you are transitioning into sleep. And there's a lot of science and research that shows ending your day with this technique of writing down your 3 wins really transforms that you look at your day as something like, yeah, I did 3 amazing things today. This is really great. High five to me, right? And then when you sleep, your positive reinforcement allows you to wake up feeling like, my gosh, I did great things yesterday. So let's continue on this trajectory. So that is the first things, really using the science of this positive reinforcement and breaking down your day into the 3 wins. And I
Mm.
can honestly tell you at the beginning, it's like a muscle that you have not trained yet. So I see that with my clients all the time, to where at the beginning, it's like, well, I don't know what my wins were. It seems like this whole day was like a complete waste. And did I actually accomplish anything? You can start very, very simple. You can be like, oh, I put on makeup today, or I went outside for a 5 minute walk. That's a win. Both of those are great wins, right? I mean, it could even be as simple as I got up today. I mean, it does not have to be something dramatic like I published a new product. No, it does not. And then over time, you develop your muscle, you become better. So that's the one thing that will help with perfectionism, thinking that every single thing contributes, every single petite practice contributes to your well-being, to your productivity. On the flip side, you need to be okay with a practice. And that's why I'm using the word petite practice and not petite perfection. It could be that, let me give you an example again from my own life. When I wrote my dissertation, sometimes on the next day I open it and I was like, yeah, those 2 pages, yeah, that's that's kind of junky. You read it and you're like, oh gosh, you have to let go of that. You have to let go of that. Because once you start rewriting the 2 pages from yesterday, all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, now I'm rewriting the 2 pages from yesterday and I haven't even started the 2 pages from today. Now you're like in this like, oh, but I have to make them perfect. This is the thing you have to let go of.
Mm.
Progress always beats perfection. And the word fail, break that up into the acronym of first attempt in learning. So I
Mhm.
intentionally chose the word practice and not petite perfection because it could be that the 2 pages that you wrote are just kind of like so-so, but you know what? You wrote 2 pages. And that might be more than 98% of the population that didn't write anything on this day. Good. So awesome. So when I published my books, I published them and I just chose a date and I published them. I did not go through and go all crazy. It's like every page is perfect because I'm sure there's a typo here or there or something doesn't work. But you know what? That was my first attempt in learning. So I can go back and I can edit the book. Nobody says I can't. And I think that sometimes we're so hard on ourselves, feeling that whatever we put out has to be perfect. Because we do that, we are becoming somewhat inactive, sitting on the sidelines and waiting. And we are afraid of actually sharing something. But I think that then, what I tell you right now, the first book that I published, when I opened it, I already noticed, oh my gosh, this could have been this and could have been that. That's all right. I even shared with my students. I'm like, you know what? For everybody that finds a typo in my book, I would love to know. And then they're searching for typos,
Right.
and it's cool because it makes me feel human. It makes me feel authentic. And at the same time, it makes my students realize that I was not aiming for perfection. I published a book so that they have something amazing in their hands. But at the same time, it also wasn't something that I aimed for perfection.
Yeah, I love that. What progress over perfection is definitely something I'm constantly thinking of too. Like the action wins, like if you want to move forward, like the inaction of spinning your wheels and trying to get to perfection usually isn't very helpful. But I also loved the first attempt in learning for fail. Like that's an amazing reframe. And it gives you permission for things to fail or to be imperfect or to miss the mark, and that it's completely okay and normal and human and part of this process that keeps us moving. Because I do see so many people that get stuck or overwhelmed, or things just take so much longer than they could have, because they are going back and they're revising it again and they're revising it again and they're revising it again, and they just never feel like it's ready to show anyone or to just call done, like, and then move on to the next thing.
Yeah, and I think you have to give yourself permission to fail and then own that, right? So you have to be cool with that. You have to essentially, when I share my students my story, I could say, oh, yeah, so I did my PhD and blah, blah, blah. But instead of that, I'm also maybe sharing that. Yeah, I mean, when I wrote my dissertation, I actually really, there were many days when I wasn't sure I'm actually going to make it. So what I did was I booked my parents' flight tickets from Germany. And then when I did talk to my parents on the phone, they would be like, okay, so we can't wait to see you. And I was like, gosh, this is real. So I better get this dissertation done, right? So I think that you have an ecosystem around you by sharing with my parents. Oh my gosh, that this is actually kind of tough writing a dissertation in a foreign language and thinking about these mathematical formulas because I have a PhD in applied economics, right? So I wrote these formulas, I developed these models, and sometimes I was like, it could be that this all is not going to work out. But then I knew because I was doing small steps and I constantly shared it with my PhD advisor
Mm.
that by doing that, I wasn't saying, well, I will see you in a month. I was basically making sure, all right, so we got to get these weekly meetings on the calendar because within a week, I write about 30 to 40 pages, something like that, like again, like taking the 3 by 7, like I guess that would be 20 pages. So I would love these 20 pages for you to be reviewed. And then what I would like to do is we have this weekly meeting on the calendar. Anything that you feel I need to change, I want to address ahead of time. So again, it's that meeting that really made me work because it created accountability. But at the same time, sometimes when I met, I was like, yeah, I don't know that this was the best chapter in the world. And then my PhD advisor would be, well, you still got a chapter done. So you don't, I mean, it's called gap thinking, right? Don't be in the gap. Rather think you wrote a chapter. Rather think, okay, this is actually gap versus gain. I gained 20 pages.
Mm.
I'm not going to say that they are bad quality, but by saying it, I'm already making it look miserable. So don't think about that. So there is an amazing book that's called Gap versus Gain. And I think that is frequently what we were so hard on ourselves as perfectionists. We are always in the gap. We're like, well, it's just 20 pages, or I'm not good in learning names, or I don't know I will ever finish. And it's like, well, yeah, if you keep telling yourself, I don't know.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of back to that mindset piece, but also I love the way that you built in these accountability and support systems and structures within your community by telling your family that they could come and book their tickets, and setting these regular touch points with somebody who could support you, encourage you, give you feedback along the way. And I think that is really helpful for us because we're social we're social creatures, and we also tend to have more I don't know, most of us are more likely to do something if someone else is expecting it of us than we are
Mhm.
if we're just expecting it of ourselves, which I would love to see that change, but it's the reality, right? Like, if other people are counting on us, we're more likely to do the thing than procrastinate and put it off. So I love that you built those systems in naturally using your community.
And I think that the beauty of when I coach my clients, the beauty of coaching clients, like what we do right now, we talk in real person. the beauty of talking in real person is it creates another layer of accountability. So even though I'm a firm believer, I talk with my clients, digitally via email, via Slack, or via Voxer, it's not the same because I can't like physically like reach through Voxer and give them like a little tap here, you need to get something done. I mean, they share with me, oh, I'm really busy this week, but I don't know what are they busy with, right? But by talking in person, you can ask these follow-up questions, and it's a completely different layer of accountability, which is why in my one-on-one coaching, I always meet one-on-one with a person because that's really when the magic transformation happens. Otherwise, they're just muddling around and they get stuck and they start to question everything and they don't check their messages, or it's like life takes over and all of a sudden they feel behind and then they don't even want to get started anymore, and it's like
Mhm.
one thing leads to the next. So that's really when the magic happens, when you are meeting one on one, you're talking in person, and via Zoom is essentially, the next best thing minus traveling across the world. And that is, I think, really what I feel my clients appreciate so much, that I take that time and I want to see that personal connection.
Yeah. Well, and when you create that space for however long it might be, an hour or so, that's
Mhm.
just undivided attention on a person. It's their space to do this work. Like it's a dedicated space with another person who can support, provide tools, provide accountability. But it's also like, okay, this is my time. Usually people are paying for that time. So it's like, they want to get the most of it, right?
Yeah, and for as much as it helps is really to have an in-person meeting. You could even give it like little themes. You can say, all right, so for the next meeting, both of us are going to pick up our favorite coffee or tea drink, and I can't wait for you to share what that's going to be. So don't make it all about work, but also like create like a little fun little exercise or activity with it. Or next call, wear maybe your favorite sweater, and I can't wait for you to show me what it is, or show me like your good luck charm, or I don't know what. So, but
Yeah.
it's something that it gets you out of the mindset like, oh my gosh, she's going to ask me how many pages I wrote, or she's going to ask me whether I put myself out on social media. I love that you mentioned this before because visibility is very intimidating. And that makes it a little bit more about something else. And it takes the focus away from this all needs to be about productivity, but more like I'm actually going to share a little bit more about my true self. And that frequently actually makes me understand who that person is and where their superpowers really lie when they share like the little special tidbits. And that's really what I think is magic when you start sharing something like that.
Yeah, and it infuses that time with like this joy and this excitability and some fun and humanness and playfulness. So like you said, it's not just like all work or something you're dreading or nervous about, or you're gonna feel judged because of where you're at with your goal. It's actually this space where there's other things arising and there's joy in those moments. I'm I'm curious. So I think I shared this with you when we first talked, but burnout is something that I personally experienced early in my career. A lot of the people I work with are either going through burnout or kind of on the other side trying to rebuild life. And I'm curious how these petite practices support in preventing burnout, maybe alongside this superpower emphasis that you have, like really leaning into the things that you're good at and your unique gifts alongside the petite practices. How can that support people in not getting to that place of overwhelm and stress and frustration and burnout?
I think with regard to burnout, super common. And especially when you think a little bit about us being perfectionists, we need to get this done and it needs to be this absolute most amazing thing. In reality, when you take that one goal, whatever that might be, what really leads to burnout is that you're not exactly clear about the deadline or what you're going to put out by that deadline. So frequently my clients say, well, I want to create this 12-week coaching program or this big thing, this book or something like this. But then I say, all right, so with regard to your deadline, what are we really looking at? And sometimes it already helps to set a deadline and then working backwards to today. So making like this deadline a little bit like a reverse engineering goal. And at that point, when you look at the calendar, and I really like to look at a calendar, like a physical calendar, and I actually have a planner that I published on Amazon, and it has like planning pages there to really think back. All right, that 12-week program, is that even something I can do? Because if you set it out, like let's say you want to launch it in August, right? For whatever reason, it seems like an amazing time in August, back to school. You're creating this 12-week program for coaches to maybe start their digital productivity, who knows what. All of a sudden you're realizing, gosh, August is just 4 months away. And then I'm going to ask, all right, so does it need to be 12 weeks? Could we maybe start with like 6 weeks or 10 weeks? And really breaking it down, the petite practice with A, the deadline, but B, also, what does this program really need to entail to be viable? So in entrepreneurship, there's something that's called the unique value proposition. So what will make this program so unique that people will find it absolutely irresistible? But what is the minimum value proposition you want to offer? So what's unique about it? And what is the absolute minimum thing we need to put in there? And if you feel it needs to be 12 pages, cool. At 12 weeks, cool. But maybe each week is very small and each week is far more broken down than having like, this ginormous thing. So what I'm telling you right now, a petite practice will help on two regards, reverse engineering, but also really figuring out what is unique about your offer because nobody buys a product, everybody buys a story. So you need to think about the transformation that your product or your service will do. And I think that, speaking about the superpower and the petite practice, once you break it down and you think what you're sharing with the world with your product or with your service, that's really when I see momentum because all of a sudden people are like, oh, that's true.
Mhm.
It's 12 weeks because I see that between August and what would that be? August, September, October. August and October, people want to get ready for Black Friday. So I'm going to create this 12-week program to make the best Black Friday product, service, or whatever. And something along these lines. So I think that frequently we get overwhelmed because we A, don't have a good set deadline, and B, we don't know exactly what the product and service will look like. And because of that, because it's so not concrete and not defined, it becomes like this big, overwhelming thing. And I always tell my clients the exact same thing. You're walking towards the horizon. And they're like, what do you mean? It's like, well, did you ever notice that you can't actually reach the horizon? You're just going to keep walking? Have you ever thought about that? Right. And they're like, well, I guess you have a point. It's like, yeah, you're doing that. So we're not walking towards the horizon. We're going to walk towards date, whatever, 8/8, August 8th. That's the date. And we both, of course, have to find the date together. And if you like that date, that's going to be the date. And whatever is going to be done by that date, you're going to put that out. So we're not going to move that date. That date is the deadline. And then we figure out what can we get done by that date. And that is, I think, when all of a sudden things become real because we're taking action and we're thinking about the horizon as maybe a location on a map instead of just like this lofty goal.
Yeah. Yeah, I think about that like when we get lost or overwhelmed or exhausted, a lot of that is because you're right, like you're running at full pace, full speed, full effort towards an unknown, unseen destination and you have no idea if you're getting closer or if you've gotten there yet. And you're probably doing it out of alignment without having rhythms of like rest and care within that too, right? Like and so of course you're not enjoying that process. You're not going to be feeling nourished in that process and probably won't be able to create the thing that you really intended to or want to if you could get clear and specific. And I like the way you said like, putting it out there as the date and what's the minimum, viable thing that we need to create the impact. What is the purpose behind this? Can create some excitement, some joy, some purpose too to it. Like, why does this matter so much to me? So you stay kind of aligned as you're going
Mhm.
towards these goals. Um, so I'm curious how you incorporate the rest and recovery piece. Because earlier you said you also do like health wellness stuff within your coaching work. So how do you see that playing a role in keeping people going and keeping their momentum and in a healthy way?
Yeah, so the way that I look at my day, and I'm a visual thinker, is I essentially take a bunch of bricks, like little Lego bricks, right? And I build the bricks into a day. So my calendar is very color coded because I'm visual. And my little bricks are evenly distributed by color. So for instance, my work color in my calendar is green. I don't want to make my calendar all green because that means I'm working all day. So
Mm.
what I do with my little bricks is I intersperse these little other bricks, like my fitness is blue. I put the little blue bricks between the green bricks.
Mm.
And when I look at my day, every day I'm planning it out just like that. So now here's the important thing. When you think about that little green brick, that work brick right there, you have to be super honest with yourself. You have to say, all right, from 2 until 3, I'm going to work on this. I'm going to write like 3 pages. I'm going to start on my course creation, whatever your product will be that you're working towards. And then at 3 o'clock, you have to stop, right? And for all of you that are watching right now, I actually have this because speaking of breaks, I have a little timer on my desk, right? And so I can set like a 60-minute timer. And all what you do is you just flip it up, and then the timer starts and it even flashes. And then comes a sound. At the sound, you have to stop. And then you're moving to your next break, your blue break, the fitness
Mm.
break, or maybe going outside break. You have to do this. Otherwise, you're driving yourself crazy. If you don't have a calendar that is broken up into rest and work and socialization, yes, we are human. We need to socialize. There needs to be family time in there. There needs to be social time in there, whether that's your book club or whether that's hanging out with your kids or whether that's going for a walk with your neighbor. That needs to be in there. Now, the other thing, and I love that you asked earlier about overwhelm, is don't ever plan more than 3 things per day. So,
Mm.
3 wins at the end of the day, 3 goals for that day. So, don't start with like a to do list of 15 because guess what? I can already tell you it's not going to happen. But it's good. It's good to get it out of your head. Write it out, right? So, have this master list of things and then every day just tackle 3. Because if you tackle more than 3, most likely you're setting yourself up for failure in terms of feeling you didn't accomplish anything. But at the same time, think if you just tackle 3 and the good feeling you're going to have, you finish those 3. So yeah, breaking out Lego bricks, brick by brick, you're building your day, and you need to say, all right, my timer went off. I need to get outside right now. And I
Mm.
have a watch that keeps track of my steps, and I'm looking and I'm like, gosh, I really didn't walk at all today. I better get outside, right? But my calendar also says I need to go outside. So that's how you create your own accountability. You don't need to have somebody that says, oh, I'm picking you up to go to the gym. You could do that, but you can also create little systems yourself. You can have an alarm going off on your phone or on your computer and says, all right now is walk time or read time or close my eyes and not look at electronics time. And that will create more momentum than actually constantly working. My best ideas never happen at the computer. Never. They
Yeah.
do not happen when I look at a white Google Doc and I see the cursor, boom, boom, boom. They do not happen then. They happen on that walk that I scheduled after the 2 hour work time or whatever I set myself. That's when the idea I'm walking and I'm still digestion what I just worked on, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a good idea. And then I come back and I'm like, here we go. That's it.
Yes. I love the color blocks in the calendar to, because that's such an easy, whether you're a visual person or not, it's an easy way to audit yourself, to be able to look at the calendar and say, is there a balance here? Because, and I also love that you said 3 things a day, because I also know people who will very much put 15 things on that list and create a very rigid schedule of everything. And it's like, even if they're putting a lot of great things in there, they're tired, they're overwhelmed, they're mentally fatigued, even just trying to do all the things that they've planned out in this very rigorous routine. So like, sounds like there is this consistency and this discipline, but there's also some space and some realistic, boundaries that you have to honor within yourself as you're moving through this. And the color calendar, I love that. You can just take a quick look and see, is it over dominant in green? Do I have no physical activity, or I have no socialization within this day or this week? Okay, that's a problem. I know I'm not going to be at my best. I need to find a way to put that in there. I love that. So,
And I love that you said that with the colors because we are all different, but I think it helps. I mean, like I say, with Legos, we're all familiar with that. Pick something that's familiar to you.
yeah. Yeah. So I'm looking at the time. I get this conversation's been so good. I'm
Mhm.
sure that everyone is going to just take so much away from this, but I want to spend this last little bit talking about the superpowers, your new book, and how people can lean into that. So maybe just open it up to tell us a little bit about what this book is about and how it helps people to really lean into those superpowers.
Yeah. I think thanks for asking too, because as a professor and as a coach, there's always tools you want to use. And for me, the best thing was I'm just going to create my own tools, right? So that's why I wrote the book, because I saw there was a white space in the market. I've been teaching for 20 years now, and I counted the other day 10,000 students is what I've had in my classrooms. And I've noticed there's a lot of learning changes that happened, right? So while when I started, I would use a marketing or entrepreneurship textbook, and students would read 20, 50 pages. Nowadays, this doesn't work anymore. There's so much noise that's going on. You would never succeed as a professor and say, all right, so by next week, read these 20 pages and we're going to talk about it. It doesn't work this way because nobody has the mental capacity of sitting down and reading 50 pages. And I just told you that, per month, you could maybe write 100 pages, but reading this all in one setting, most people don't do that unless it's like unless it's like a book that you want to read for fun and for leisure. So my Discovery Superpower book very much follows the concept of my best-selling How to Master Your Goals book, that it is a workbook. It has actually the size of a laptop, so it's 8.5 by 11, and each page is a petite practice.
Mm.
So the pages are exercises, they're very applicable to your life in discovering your superpower. And it goes in 5 sections. However, you can open the book at any page and you can jump right in. And that takes off the whole burden of, oh my gosh, I have to do this from front to back. And don't be hard on yourself. You can open it anywhere. And once you open it, you'll also notice is there are personal quizzes in there. I also have podcast episodes in there. And I provide a lot of different resources with regard to other books, other tools, like a little timer that I shared with you, maybe a favorite product that I've been using that enhances my productivity. So it is very hands-on in terms of meeting you at whatever learning level you are. If you are a visual learner, there are even some little word searches in there. I call them power searches. If you're more like listening, you can listen to a podcast. If you like viewing, you can watch a podcast. And of course, the personal quizzes help you. So it follows the 3P system. So each section starts with a personal quiz. There are podcast episodes. I have 5 per sections, not to overwhelm you, just 5. And then it usually finishes with a power search with like different terms that are used in that section that you can search in a word search. And that's basically like really how I see my students have transformed from being these passive digesters of pages. And now they're much more interactive. They engage, they work with a book, and they really feeling this meets me where I am right now. It meets me with my learning style. And that was really the goal, that I make it more accessible.
I love that it does connect with every single learning preference or style, right? Like no matter how you learn best, whatever keeps your attention, and it also brings you into the learning. Like you said, you're not just passively digesting and memorizing information of somebody else. You're really making it personal and taking a proactive and creative role in this discovery process. And so then the outcome will be unique for each person, even though it's this uniform book that everyone's getting the same book. Like what they get out of it is going to be based on them personally, which is so powerful and so needed. I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and at the same time, it takes off a little bit my focus on like, here I am, I'm this expert, I know everything, because I'm sharing these amazing people that have been on my podcast. And my podcast is ranked top 1% globally. So I basically say, look, these people that have been on my podcast, they are sharing their superpower with you, and you're more than welcome to reach out to any of these podcast guests and connect with them, with whoever meets you at a place where you want to learn a little bit more about, listen to the podcast, connect with that guest. And I essentially make it a very much of like, here I am, I'm sharing these things, but at the end of the day, it's nearly like a potluck. You pick and choose and put together what works for you. Because at the potluck, if I don't know if, I mean, we're all familiar with the idea of a potluck, it always works out. It always works out. Like it always seems to be a plate that's just sparking a lot of joy. And that's when I created my book. I was like, yeah, this is like a potluck. We're putting a bunch of stuff together, and it's going to be this beautiful medley of exercises, of knowledge, but at the end of the day, of application.
Yeah. Yeah. And then people can create that beautiful play of joy for themselves, taking the pieces that resonate. That's
Mhm.
so powerful. So if people want to stay connected with you, you mentioned the books are on Amazon. Where's the best place for people to find you, to connect with you, to work with you if that's something they're interested in? I would love to have a moment for you to share that before we wrap up.
Yeah, I have a little quiz I can share with the audience as well. It's giving you your superpower score. So, how well do you know your own superpower? And it gives you a score, and then you can jump in directly in the quiz. And it's just as fun as what my students in the classroom experience. And at the end of the quiz, then you can also see my contact information, which is my website, drchristiana.com. And you can see on my website various resources that I recommend, all my favorite goodies and products. I would love for you to also share my podcast, which is Happy Healthy Hustle. And there are short episodes to let you keep up your hustle, but maybe like listen to it in the car while you are driving from or to your next meetings or pickups or whatever you do. Happy Healthy Hustle is the name of that podcast. And then, of course, on Amazon, my Amazon has all of the books listed, and that's just my Amazon storefront is Dr. Christiana. If you want to look at the Amazon storefronts, and you can see them right there. And I'm also on social media, same name, Dr. Christiana on YouTube. And yeah, I would love to connect and hear what your questions are and help you reach your superpower.
Amazing. Yes, we'll put all of those links in the show notes, make it really easy. This has been such a fun conversation. Are there any final things that you want to share before we wrap up?
I think that, I love that you brought up earlier perfectionism. If you feel you're moving towards your goal and there's maybe a tough day, always think that the no that somebody maybe given you, you have maybe applied to pitch or to speak somewhere, or maybe somebody rejected your book or your proposal, or maybe customers didn't buy. Always think of no as next opportunity.
Mm.
Something else will pop up. Next opportunity, right? Just say, all right, gotta know. It's not a personal rejection. Just moving on. It wasn't the right thing. Moving on, right? I always think there's this beautiful line in the movie Finding Nemo where Dory and Nemo are swimming and they say, just keep on swimming. You just have to keep on swimming, right? You can do this.
Yes. Yes, that's a beautiful place to wrap up this amazing conversation. Next opportunity, I love that. Make those no's into these powerful reminders that something else is coming and to keep moving forward, keep swimming. Beautiful place to end. Thank you again. I have so enjoyed this conversation. I hope that everyone who's listening will go into the notes and check out all of the resources available to you there. If you loved it, make sure you share it, you comment, you rate it. All of those things will help get this message and these resources out to more people. So thank you so much for listening. Take care of yourselves and try a petite practice. I'll talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. If you want more resources on thriving in your life or want details on working with me, check out my website at internallyguidedleadership.com or follow me on Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok at Internally Guided Coach. Be gentle with yourselves out there, and I'll talk to you next time.